What's going on, you guys? My name's Ty Knotts, and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns, 5 spring break horror stories from Reddit. Number 5. At the time that this occurred, I was in nursing school and struggling to get by. My dad had killed himself when I was little, and my mom turned to alcohol after that, so I didn't get much help there. But I was determined to get my degree and have a stable life for myself. I lived in a crappy ghetto apartment in a scary part of town. I'm talking gunshots at least once a week, along with drug needles on the sidewalk. The random hours required for clinicals made it hard to hold down a good job. Plus, I didn't have any transportation besides my bike, which was on its last leg. Long story short, I was having a very hard time and looking for any way to make some money. Cue Jane. She was a good friend of mine who I'd known since freshman year. She noticed my situation and told me how she was making $200 a night at a local strip club. This got my attention as it was a lot of money. She said the club had a no-touching policy and that the guys literally just threw the money at you. I made the decision to go with her that night and checked it out. I was graduating in less than a year anyway, so why not? Jane stayed by my side the entire night, and I felt safe and no one touched me or harassed me. I even made over $300. The best part was that I chose my own hours so that I could make sure it didn't interfere with the schoolwork. We went a few more times together before she left to visit her family for spring break. She then left me with explicit instructions that if I needed to go to work, I was to take a cab, call her when I left, and call her when I got there. Text her every hour and then call her when I was leaving. This seemed like overkill to me, but I agreed. I then finished all my classwork early one evening and thought since it was spring break in a big city, I could earn a few hundred extra. So I called a cab, called Jane, and went to work. Everything was normal. I was doing great and making more than I ever had. Then I was approached by a girl who I'd seen there before. She introduced herself as Asia, but none of us went by our real names. She talked to me for a bit and asked where I lived. This sent tiny alarm bells off in my mind, but I figured she was just being friendly and named off another apartment complex near me. She then told me she was looking for a good roommate and asked if I would be interested. I was obviously taken aback a bit, but I was dying to get out of my scary place. I asked how much rent was, and she said that the guy who owned the duplex wasn't charging students as long as they were working. Once again, this set off alarms in my head, since I didn't tell Asia I was a student, but I didn't catch on to that at the time. I was a little cautious, but definitely interested. She then told me she would take me by the place when the club closed so that I could check it out, and then she would take me home. I thought to myself that there was no harm in looking. I then called Jane and told her about the situation. She became very quiet and asked what the girl's name was. I told her and she responded saying that I needed to call a cab and get home now. I was angry that she was kind of ruining this for me until she explained that Asia was a known prostitute. So long story short, yes, I would have gotten to live there for free, but as a sex slave. She didn't want me as a roommate, she wanted to bring me back to her pimp. Number 4. It was March during spring break, and I was 16 at the time, and me and about 20 people went into the woods in Surrey County and got a cabin in this nice little retreat. We planned on staying there for about 4 days. For a bit more detail, the cabin was surrounded by all woods, and to the west of the cabin are some hunting trails and a creepy abandoned trailer next to a small clearing, with a single pine in the center. To the east, there was a large field, and at the end of the field, there was a slope leading down to the beach. When going down the slope to the right, there's an area of higher elevation, and to the right was a valley that could be accessed from the beach. Anyway, on the last night, a group of about 8 of us decided we would go down to the beach and sit around and sing songs while playing guitar. It was about 11 p.m. Everything was going fine, and then 3 of the guys decided to head back to the cabin and get some food. They were gone only for about 10 minutes before one of the guys got a call from his brother. His reaction to the call made it seem like something had happened or someone was hurt. When he got off the phone, he said, "We have to leave right now," in a very panicky and hushed voice. We all asked why, and he told us that the others were walking back to the cabin when they saw a rabbit at the top of the trail with its head cut clean off. Not ripped off like an animal's doing, but a cut as if someone took a knife to the rabbit. So we automatically thought that they had to be toying with us. We then began walking back, brandishing the guitar and a metal pipe as a weapon just in case they weren't messing with us. About halfway up the hill, we hear rustling and twig snapping to our right where the valley is. It sounded like someone was walking up the side of the very steep slope. We then told them to knock it off and said that if it was a joke, then it wasn't very funny. Just then, I pulled my phone out to turn on the light, and that's when I saw the rabbit. We then ran inside the cabin, locked all the doors, and 2 of us stood guard overnight, though we never really saw anything else. I have no idea who or what this was, but hopefully we won't ever meet. Number 3. Back in 1991, I went to Dayton Beach for spring break with about 4 other guys. We stayed in a ratty cheap motel along the ocean front. At the beach, we'd made plans to go out for dinner that second night there and check out one of the cool looking nightclubs along the main street. We walked for about a mile or two to where the bigger attractions were. About 30 minutes later, my friend Kurt starts to feel a bit queasy and tired and said that he planned on going back to the motel. I told him that I wanted to hang out at the club because I'd already paid the $20 cover fee to get inside. Eventually, when I left, I was walking along the main street back towards our motel when I noticed that everything was uncomfortably quiet. That's when I saw what appeared to be a group of Hispanic-looking guys up ahead. They then took notice of me and jumped inside some bushes along the walkway that I would be crossing. My mind and heart immediately started racing as there was no one else around but me, and I assumed they were planning to jump me or try to rob or attack me. I stopped for a moment to figure out what was going on around me and saw an expensive-looking hotel across the road. I noticed in my hesitation that one of them made his way closer to where I was standing. I then bolted across the main drag road as fast as I could, not even looking back. I then got into the lobby of this hotel and tried to gain my composure while not drawing attention to myself. I didn't see any of the guys enter, so I figured they were still outside. I then noticed that the bar extended out onto the beach, so I walked out onto the beach, jumped the hotel gate, and followed the moonlight back to our ratty motel. I made sure not to go anywhere without the rest of the guys after that. Number 2. A couple of months ago on spring break, me, my friend Jay, and my friend Kay went to this park near our houses at about 11:30 at night. We did this a few times before, so we were never scared or anything. We would usually climb into the jungle gym and chill in there so that we were hidden away from the main street. Anyway, on this particular night, we were smoking weed in the jungle gym and I'd gotten up and fell down the stairs and sprained my ankle. So we all got up out of the jungle gym so that I could walk it off. Then we sat on the swings for a second and I saw a car pull up in front of the park. About 2 minutes later, the angriest, scariest male voice I've heard in my entire life gets out and shouts, "I'm gonna mess you up." He was clearly yelling at us because we were the only people in the park. There was a trail right behind the park that led to a movie theater that's a little bit next to the park, so it was the perfect escape route. At this point, I was high and paranoid, so I just took off running on a limp from a sprained ankle that had only happened about 5 minutes before. We finally got to the movie theater parking lot and people were looking at us like we were crazy, obviously because we were hysterically running out of a freaking field. That's when I realized that I must have dropped my keys while we were running. So we went back, scared out of our minds, and finally found my keys. Thankfully, by this point the guy was gone, but needless to say, we never went back to that park. Number 1. This happened to me while I was on spring break vacation at my family's condo in Clearwater, Florida, while I was in the 7th grade. It scared me quite a bit and made me much more careful of who I became friends with on the internet. I'd had a long-distance friend over Facebook by the name of Lucas Vo. We'd been friends for several months and I learned that he was the same age as me. Eventually, I gave him my phone number and we started talking even more than before. One day while I was sitting around at our condo, Lucas texts me, knowing that I'm in Florida, and he claims that he's heading up to the same mall as me at the same time that my family and I are going. He also said that he and his little sister were walking there and that he was carrying her on his back. I thought this was kind of odd that a 13-year-old and his baby sister would be allowed to walk around a busy mall on a highway street, but I shrugged it off and we headed to the mall. After a bit of shopping, I text Lucas to ask where he is. He said that he's outside of PacSun and supposedly sent me a picture to prove it, but I never got it. With my parents now fed up of waiting for this kid to show up, I call him. I'll always remember what I heard on the other end. "Hey kid, where are you? I'm getting pretty angry." It was an older man's voice in a very angry, menacing tone. I quickly hung up and raced toward the mall entrance where my parents were and told them what had happened. They texted the number threatening to call the police, but all he said was, "Screw this, I'm walking home. Go ahead and call them." Since then, I'm very wary of who I meet online and make sure I don't tell anyone that I don't personally know when I'm going on vacation. I really don't want to get followed again. So creepy mall guy, let's not meet. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.